welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. I'm very excited to be with you on this fantabulous, fantastic, just loaded show on a Wednesday. We've got a ton to talk about in the NBA, in the NFL. We got Bryson's Best 10 later in my show. This is the most shakeup in the top 3 of Bryson's Best 10 that we've seen by far all season long. Chiefs Lions have been 1-2 between weeks 1 and 11. That's going to change this week. You're going to want to stay tuned to see who I have as the best team in the NFL. Where does Kansas City potentially end up? Where does Detroit? Where does Buffalo? Where are my Steelers? Somewhere in that ballpark. Bryce's Best 10 in about 40 to 45 minutes. Carving up the context. We normally do it in the middle of the show. Actually going to lead the show off with it. Talking about the Dallas Cowboys, who have been a frequent guest and a frequent member of this particular segment. Reports say the Jets wanted to bench Aaron Rodgers, in particular their owner, Woody Johnson. I think the Sixers need to trade Joel Embiid. Get into that in 30 minutes. And at the end of today's show, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers and you got the Cleveland Browns tomorrow night in Cleveland. I'll predict that game. I'm sure there's going to be those of you out there that know I'm a Steelers fan. It took me a long time to figure out which direction I was going to lean in this spot. But let's get started with the Monday Night Football game that ended up about how we kind of thought that it would. But first, Houston blows out Dallas 34-10. I had 31-6. So, tomato. Dallas losing by 25. Sue me. They lost by 24. At least they scored a touchdown. I didn't think they'd do that. But despite C.J. Stroud playing average football, which is about what he's played for the last 2 months or so, even with Nico Collins back in the lineup, and getting that guy back in the lineup was apparent for Houston. For Dallas, Cooper Rush, not a terrible statistical output, a touchdown, a pick, threw for 354 yards, but completion percentage wasn't good. The passer rating wasn't good. The QBR wasn't good. It looked like how a lot of Cowboys games have looked, particularly without Dak Prescott in the lineup when their offenses look nothing short of anemic. But a story, maybe not even a story, something that has been pushed by Cowboy fans, Cowboy media, national media alike is, we know Mike McCarthy's gone at the end of the season. We know Jerry Jones is not going to fire him during the season. It's been very well sourced that Jerry is a guy who doesn't like it. There's a bit of nobility behind this. I've criticized Jerry over the years. In a way, I think he's got a good heart in this regard. Like, he doesn't fire head coaches in the middle of seasons. It's just not what he does. And Mike McCarthy's in last year of his deal. He's just going to let his contract expire. So the thing has been, get Deion Sanders. Matter of fact, you're going to get a high enough draft pick. Maybe consider drafting Deion Sanders' son, Shedeur Sanders. So, in the event, first of all, Deion Sanders has to leave Colorado. That's first and foremost. By the way, I think that's very much on the board for him. If I had to tell you what I think Deion Sanders is going to do, it's that he's going to lead Colorado to the college football playoff. They're going to win the Big 12, get to the CFP, and see what happens from there. And I think he's going to go to Florida State. I think Norvell's getting fired. I think Deion Sanders, that's his alma mater. It feels like the writing's on the wall. Tallahassee, it's where Deion, the legend of primetime, first began. He's got an opportunity to go there and turn around their program. By the way, he's not going to be coaching Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter forever, right? So what's the incentive to stay at Colorado? Nothing gets bolder, but Florida State, it's a bigger brand, ACC. He's got an opportunity to reestablish, and not even just reestablish, but build on his legacy at Florida State. But let's say, for the sake of argument, let's play this game. Let's say he does go to Dallas. Well, first of all, they would have to draft Shedeur Sanders in order for him to do that. Because I think only way Deion Sanders goes to the National Football League is if a team that needs a quarterback is going to draft Shedeur, or if the team that has the number 1 overall pick, like a Vegas Raiders, for example, is going to draft Shedeur Sanders and he goes there, I think they're a package deal. Maybe he would go where Travis Hunter goes, but I think he'd choose his own son before in some sense, almost like his adopted son, Travis Hunter. So they're a package deal. Here's my question. Why in God's green earth would Dallas draft Shedeur Sanders? Now, by the way, I think Shedeur is going to be really good in the National Football League. I think my big concern, and I talked about this over the course of the summer coming into the college football season, is I see everything I need to see from a tangible perspective when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. I see the arm, I see the mobility, I see everything that I need to see. Accuracy is really good. He's gotten even better in that regard. The maturity is what I worry about. Now, he seemed over the course of the season to kind of improve in that regard, so great. So let's say for the sake of argument, there's no character concerns, none of that stuff. Say he goes number 1 in the draft. Let's say Dallas gets the first pick. Why in God's name would they draft Shedeur Sanders? When we talk about the Dallas Cowboys and the myriad of issues they have, not even just structurally, I'm talking about their roster, the fact that they have, and I've been beating this drum since circa 2022, they've got one of the worst, and I think this season, minus CeeDee Lamb, the worst wide receiving core in football. Maybe could add to that the fact that their offensive line, with, God bless him, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, Zach Martin, but he's getting older. I could see Zach Martin potentially retiring at the end of the season. They've already been bad on the interior. Their O-line, really their O-line hasn't been that good all season long. Jake Ferguson dealt with injuries. You got holes at wide receiver. You got holes in your offensive line. God knows you have holes in your running back room. It's the weakest unit of an already weak football team. Your linebacking core isn't very good. The back end of your secondary is awful. Injury ravaged, sure, but awful. Your pass rush is non-existent. Micah Parsons, you haven't paid him yet. He could be a good trade asset for you. A lot of different options for the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of different issues that we could look at before we get to, probably the best or worst case second best player on their team, Dak Prescott. CeeDee Lamb, to me, is the most consistently great Dallas Cowboy on every Sunday basis. Dak Prescott's right there. Micah Parsons is a distant third. Of all the issues in Dallas, Dak Prescott ranks at or near the bottom. There's no question about that. He's dealt with chaos. He's dealt with dysfunction. But whatever your opinion is on Dak Prescott, known commodity, won playoff games. He's been an MVP finalist throughout the course of his career. Take out 2020 and 2024. He's been relatively healthy throughout the course of his NFL career. You've just invested $60 million into him over the course of the ensuing 4 seasons, because what folks are forgetting, Dak's new contract has not kicked in yet. He's in the last year of his current contract. Next year in 2025, he's going to move into his new extension that he signed, of course, on the eve of the new season. You've already invested in him. You're going to get a high draft pick, and you've got a great trade asset, Micah Parsons, who I think is I don't want to say deeply flawed player. That's too far. I think he is certainly not in the level of the tier 1 pass rushers in the NFL. TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, guys like, in Vegas, Max Crosby, guys like that. He's not in that level. He's in like that middle of tier 2 pass rushers in the NFL. There's a lot of teams that could use some pass rushers, and a lot of teams that would give you a number of draft picks in order to acquire Micah Parsons. Also, let's say you got some picks there. Let's say get the first or second pick in this draft, because I'm not sure Dallas is going to win another game this year. They could beat the Giants on Thanksgiving. Tommy DeVito, Cooper Rush, God bless America. That's a bad midday Thanksgiving matchup. No question about that. Maybe you win that game, maybe you don't. I don't think you're going to win another game the rest of the year. I think Carolina's going to beat you. You get the first, second, third overall pick in the draft. Trade down. Trade down. You could get some picks. You could surround Dak with some real talent for the first time in like 3-4 years. You invest, you double down on your investment, because the thing is, if the Dallas Cowboys draft Shedeur Sanders and in part get Deion Sanders, first of all, let's forget Shedeur. Let's forget the quarterback situation. Shedeur, Dak, let's not even talk about that. We'll get to that in a moment. When it comes to coaches being successful in the NFL, college to NFL, short list and a much longer list of guys who haven't panned out. We'll show you the guys that have, but the guys who haven't panned out. Urban Meyer, Bobby Petrino, Matt Rule, Greg Schiano, Steve Spurrier, Nick Saban. Some of those, in the cases of Meyer, Spurrier, Saban, legends. Matt Rule, I think, is a great college coach. They didn't pan out in the NFL. Now, the guys that have, we could show you those guys right here. Pretty short list. Jim Harbaugh's been to a Super Bowl. Tom Coughlin won 2 Super Bowls. So did Jimmy Johnson before he was unceremoniously fired by Jerry Jones infamously. And Pete Carroll obviously won a Super Bowl and went to another one in Seattle. It's especially recently, excuse me, guys, especially recently, a very, very short list of guys that have panned out in that regard, going from college to the NFL as a head coach. But let's say Deion pans out. Let's say Deion is a clear and obvious upgrade from Mike McCarthy, which is not a crazy thing to say or assume or think. Now you have the worst quarterback situation in the NFL. Not that you don't have two guys who have the ability. I think Shedeur is going to be successful. I know Dak has been successful. Here's your problem. You already drafted Shedeur first or second or however how you drafted him. You're going to have to get him out in the field at some point. Then what are you going to do with Dak? Dak has a no trade clause in his contract. He controls everything as it relates to whether the Cowboys wanted to move him or not. Dak could go to Jerry Jones and say, too bad you can't trade me. You can do as many deals as you want. You can put together the greatest deal you've ever had in your entire deal-making career, Mr. Jones. I'm staying in Dallas. I'm standing on principle. And at that point, Dallas wouldn't have a choice. Dak goes the Derek Carr route with what Carr did with the Raiders. And Jerry Jones says, okay, I have no choice. I'm handcuffed here. I have to cut him. And if you cut Dak Prescott, what does that do? It alleviates, it gets rid of the greatest benefit of drafting a quarterback high up in the draft with a good situation. Young quarterback, talented, shows promise. You can't build a roster around him. Not through free agency, you can't. Now, if you're a Cowboys fan, you're like, Jerry hasn't been doing that anyway, so maybe it wouldn't be that big of an adjustment for us, but you don't have the freedom to be able to do that. If you cut Dak, I don't know. I tried to look into what the cap it would be. I couldn't find it. I'm sure it would be gargantuan because Dak signed the biggest contract in NFL history, and he holds all the cards if the Cowboys were to decide to go that route. But they're strapped. They're trapped. They can't do anything as it relates to free agency, as it relates to being able to retain CeeDee Lamb long-term. Maybe a Micah Parsons. If they were to keep Micah, I think they should move him and get draft picks. But for Dallas, as bad as this year has been, as worst case scenario as this was for a number of reasons, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You can move Micah Parsons and get picks. You're going to have a high draft pick. Move that, get more. Move down the draft, get more picks. All of a sudden, you got probably an extra 2 second-rounders. You got an extra first-rounder. Now you can put together a nice NFL roster. You can shore up your receiving core. You can certainly upgrade your running game. It wouldn't hurt Jerry Jones to spend a penny or two in free agency. All of these things are on the board for Dallas. If you bring in Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders, it's over. Can't do any of those things because Deion and Shedeur would be a package deal. And again, we don't know 100% if Deion can coach. And the only way Deion goes to Dallas is if Shedeur Sanders is drafted there. That's at least how I feel. If I'm the Dallas Cowboys, the coach I'm pursuing is Mike Vrabel. The whole Belichick to Dallas guys, that'd be a disaster. It'd be an utter disaster if Bill Belichick goes to the Dallas Cowboys. He can't put together a staff. He wrecked the draft year after year, really since 2017 in New England. By the way, there's going to be a power struggle between he and Jerry and the Cowboys. Belichick wants to win another Super Bowl so that he can basically even it up with Tom. 6 Super Bowls together, 1 apart apiece. He can't do that in Dallas. They're not championship ready right now. Not even close. Even with a healthy Dak, a healthy CeeDee Lamb, they are not championship contenders. Mike Vrabel's a culture builder. Mike Vrabel's a long-term option. Mike Vrabel can put together a title contender and establish a real-life football culture, at least do the best that he can do under the thumb of Jerry Jones. We don't know if Deion's good. We know Vrabel's good. We don't know if Belichick's a long-term option. Matter of fact, we're almost certain that he isn't. We know Vrabel would be. So listen, I think there's a lot of options for Dallas moving forward. Drafting Shedeur would put them in literally cap purgatory and not allow him to put good talent around him with a rookie contract. And we don't even know if Deion will be good. We don't. The data shows most college coaches don't work in the NFL. Guys like Harbaugh, even Pete Carroll kind of fizzled out at the end. Guys like, Jimmy Johnson was fired. That's a really special instance. Tom Coughlin, that was decades ago. That was when the Jaguars were first formed as a franchise when he went from Boston College to Jacksonville, Tom Coughlin. The options are there for Dallas. I think this would be by far the worst course of action to take. No question about it. All right, let's check the comments here. My man, Jeff. Hope you're doing great, Bryson. Let's go. I'm doing well, Jeff. I hope you're doing well as well. My man, Alfred Parso Jr., student of the game, 225. Jerry Jones. By the way, shout out to Alfred. By the way, not just for our graphics, because Alfred does an amazing job with the graphics for carving it up. He also won the 8 o'clock spot last night, so let's give Alfred just a virtual round of applause here at Carving Up Live. He won the 8 o'clock spot in his first appearance of the season last night. Shout out to Alfred. But Alfred says, Jerry Jones isn't focusing on football. He made money from the Tyson fight. Oh, he made money. That is no question. Jeff, facts, Bryson. Dak is the least of their problems. You know me. I've always liked him, not as much as you, but being a Niner fan and seeing how bad the roster is around Brock is becoming, I know how Dak feels all these years. Listen, the Niners roster ain't as bad now as it has been in Dallas, but it's, again, there's a little bit of a symmetry there. What else we got? Patrick. Coach Prime is his own CEO of his brand. Nobody would want to hear Jerry's comments. We care about Coach Prime. But, again, wishful thinking, and I'm at peace. Listen, Patrick, you could be at peace for this season. I don't know. I'm just curious I would love to know what Jerry, and again, what he wants to do today, November 20th, 2024, is going to be different than what he wants to do January 9th or 10th or whatever the regular season ends of 2025. I'd like to, because he knows McCarthy's done. McCarthy knows McCarthy's done. He's a lame duck coach. He's out of there. I want to know what Jerry is aiming to do or was thinking about doing. My guess is he's probably leaning Belichick. That's my guess, and I think that would be a terrible move for the Cowboys to make. But the Deion Sanders thing, folks don't realize this. Deion is not showing up if Shedeur Sanders isn't. I think Deion is going to leave Colorado. I could be wrong on that, but I think he's going to. There's no incentive for him to, I should say there's no incentive. I mean, they've done a great job there, but there's not Travis is gone. Shedeur's gone. I think Deion would want to coach Florida State. I really do. I think the draw, it's his alma mater. He was great there. I think it would be fitting for that whole thing to kind of tie in together. Jeff. Oh yeah, you can go ahead and go that far, Bryson. Micah has a lot of limitations and agreed he's not anywhere near those tier 1 edges. He's a better Hassan Reddick, to be honest. Yeah, you're probably right about that, Jeff. And Patrick says, this is the undoing of Jerry's egomaniacal tactics. Cowboys fans, look in the mirror and make peace with what has transpired. No need to keep hope in turning things around. It's like they did a poll. And by the way, from my coverage of the election, I do not believe in polls. And while I was wrong the final result of the election, I was dead on how polls are nonsense. We should get rid of polls. I despise them to the core. That said, The Athletic put out that poll. Remember before the season, I think this is in like July, August. There wasn't anything to talk about. And they polled Cowboy fans. They polled all NFL fan bases on who's the most optimistic of their team winning a Super Bowl in the next 5 years. Dallas fans, who are notoriously, Stephen A. talks about, they're the most delusional, and Cowboy fans were the least confident. Feel like, yeah, we're come on, like we've gotten our heart broken enough. We're not going to do this again. We're not going to get our hopes to the ceiling and then just have them all crashing down. So there you go. All right, transitioning though. It feels like we talked about 2 dumpster fires, maybe more than we should, but the news just keeps rolling, so we got to talk about them because they're interesting in their own train wreck ways. The Jets. So a report came out today from Diana Rossini, who's covered this team for a while, has done a fantastic job. And she reports that after the Jets lost 10-9 in week 4 to the Denver Broncos, remember that game? That was kind of the first game that started this snowball of the Jets season going in the wrong direction. Lose to Denver in week 4 is that really raining game that Aaron Rodgers wouldn't stop talking about the rain. And they end up losing that game. And Woody Johnson reportedly wanted Aaron Rodgers benched. That was what the report said. He wanted Aaron benched. He wanted him out of there. Tyrod Taylor, let's see what you can bring us. So, excuse me. I find this really interesting in the sense that, listen, we know Woody Johnson is one of the worst owners in the NFL. That goes without saying. But there was a theory that folks floated out there that was, I thought, a little bit reachy, but now seems kind of legit in the sense that Woody Johnson, folks may not know this, he was the ambassador, I think, to the United Kingdom under the old Trump administration. There's a chance he might get back, Trump might put him back in that role again. And so, again, this has been floated for a while, that when the Jets played the Vikings in London, and that they lost that game, there's folks that believe, I didn't agree with this, but there were folks that said that's why Robert Saleh lost his job. Because I'm sure he knows a lot of, Woody Johnson knows a lot of foreign dignitaries, and he wants to impress his very rich friends over in England, and his team loses to the Vikings, and it's kind of embarrassing for him. Evidently, at least if this lines up with that theory, he felt like Tyrod Taylor gave him a better chance to win the game and therefore impress his rich friends in England. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. And again, Diana has been all over this situation with the Jets. I have no reason to believe that she's off on any of this. Here's what I do know. I know the fact that Aaron Rodgers has been an objectively average to terrible quarterback over the last, really, it wasn't terrible as last year in Green Bay. It was very, very average this year. He's been a terrible quarterback. We can show you the numbers. Thank you to Alfred, who's a big Jets fan, for finally coming to my side on this, and he put together this graphic. Aaron is a bad quarterback now. His best stat is he is 11th in touchdown and interception ratio, but that's because he just won't throw it deep ever. He's 18th in pass yards per game. He's 29th in yards per attempt, thus why the touchdown interception ratio is good or solid. 27th in completion percentage, 22nd in passer rating, and that's Aaron's favorite stat right there, 22nd. 24th in QBR, and the Jets are 26th in team points per game. We obviously did the stat. Can we put it up there one more time about how Aaron Rodgers wins significantly less percentage of his games than even Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold did. And if you want to go back to Aaron's final year in Green Bay, it wasn't that much better. He was 19th in yards per game, 15th in touchdown interception ratio, 20th in completion percentage, 23rd in yards per attempt, and he was 16th in passer rating at just a tick over 91. That's Aaron Rodgers. You saw that little thing at the bottom. No 300-yard passing games since the 2021 season, week 14 to be exact. There's been, I think, 50, going on 60 quarterbacks who have thrown for 300 yards more recently than Aaron. We won't do the whole montage thing again. Aaron has been pretty vocal, oddly so, because he didn't used to do this. I don't know if he's found a new love for football. I'm not sure what the case has been. Maybe he feels better physically absent football. I'm not sure. But he's been pretty vocal. He wants to come back. Now, the Jets, who obviously just fired their GM yesterday, Joe Douglas, who fired their coach, Robert Saleh, who done literally everything Aaron wants to do. Bring in Devontae Adams, bring in Alan Lazard, bring in Randall Cobb last year, bring in some offensive linemen. Somehow Nathaniel Hackett is literally immune from all firings and criticisms, and he got demoted, but that's about it, despite being one of the worst offensive minds in professional football. Buddies with Aaron. Aaron's gotten everything he wants. The Jets are sitting here at 4-7. Rather, I'm sorry, not 4-7. They're 3-8. They're terrible. They're going to get one of the high draft picks. You tell me, you the audience, because maybe I'm missing something. What's Aaron's market? What is it? Now, the thing is, you won't have to pay Aaron Rodgers a whole heck of a lot of money. Like, that's one of the upsides, is it's not going to be like you're going to have to inherit a massive contract. I'm looking at teams that could need quarterbacks. Because Aaron is not going to go somewhere and be a backup. That's too, I mean, that was the excuse they used for Tebow and Kaepernick, like too big of a distraction to be a backup. Aaron Rodgers can't be a backup. Okay, so the teams that could need starting quarterbacks, if not bridge guys. Looking down the list. AFC East is pretty much clear. You look at the AFC North, Cleveland. I don't know. They've already got the Deshaun Watson thing. That's hard enough. You think they're going to bring Aaron in? I highly doubt that. Look at the AFC South, Tennessee. I mean, maybe the Titans bring him in. Maybe. I guess I could see it if they're really that out on Will Levis. I could see them just going ahead and restarting and drafting quarterback if that's the case. You look at the AFC West, the Raiders. I mean, it'd be kind of a classic Raiders move, but Aaron Rodgers, Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, I see little difference. I don't see the point in bringing in basically Gardner Minshew, just more distracting to your franchise. I don't see the incentive in that. Look at the NFC East. The Giants are going to draft a quarterback. Dallas is a terrible team. They have a good quarterback. There's no question. I think a great quarterback. We'll get to that another day. The Vikings have Darnold, and they've already got J.J. McCarthy in waiting. Okay, you look at the NFC South. The Saints, Carr's better than Aaron Rodgers today, and they could still just draft a guy next year. The Panthers, they're either going to roll with Bryce or they're going to draft a quarterback. We keep going down the list in the NFC West. No one needs a quarterback right now. I'm not crazy high on Geno, but he's way better than Aaron Rodgers today. And folks have come back with, well, Bryson, Russell Wilson didn't have a massive market coming into free agency. Here's the thing with Russell Wilson. By the way, folks know I was not sold on Russell going to Pittsburgh. I was fine with it. I'm like, he's better than what we had last year. He cost $1 million. It's 1 year, whatever. I'm fine with it. Wasn't crazy about it, but I was fine with it at the time. Now Russell's been really good. But if you go back then, Russell had a solid, I didn't think the numbers were indicative of how well he actually played, but Russell had a good statistical season. His passer rating was good. I think he was around like 95, 96. It might have been the high 90s potentially. It was about 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Like his numbers were on par with that of Mahomes last year. And Mahomes had a down year, but still it was like, okay, Russell was pretty good. Relative to his awful 2022 season, Russell might have a resurgence here. And he only paid $1 million for him. And for all the distractions that Russell, in theory, brings, it pales in comparison to Aaron. Like, let's be intellectually honest here. There's the McAfee interviews. There's the conspiracy theories. There's the God knows what he'll say this offseason on a podcast. There'll be a darkness retreat. He'll probably skip mandatory minicamp. He'll lecture the entire organization about how he cares about football more than anybody else, despite him being absent more than anybody else. He'll probably bring some of his buddies to the franchise. Russell didn't. It's night and day. It is apples and oranges comparing Aaron to Russell Wilson, their market. Russell this past offseason, Aaron next offseason. I don't know if Aaron's going to retire. I think he should. I think he should just go and hang it up now. Don't make your legacy any worse, or let us have a worse taste in our mouth about the end of your career than we already have now. But if Aaron still loves football, he'll probably pursue it. I don't see, again, the Raiders feel like the most likely, and they'd be a classic Las Vegas Raiders move. But keep in mind, for what it's worth, Tom Brady's in the ownership now. I think if this gets to Tom, Brady isn't going to be like, this is what I bought into. Yeah, the Raiders are a mess, but we're not going to make it more of a mess. We're not going to make it a mess and a big distraction. If you be bad, just be bad. Don't be bad and I guess good for media consumption, if nothing else, even though it's not going to help you win football games. So just seeing that article about Woody Johnson, wanted to bench Aaron way earlier than even I, who's not a big Aaron guy and doesn't think he's been good in some time now. Even I would have benched him that early. So it's kind of is a further reinforcement. Aaron's gotten literally everything he's wanted for 2 years in New York, and it's amounted to literally nothing. Nothing. Matter of fact, it's been a net negative with the Jets, even relative to Darnold and Zach Wilson. Jets need to move off of Aaron. I think they should. I think they probably will, given if Woody was this disenchanted with Aaron in September, how's he going to feel in March when the offseason arrives? And I guess maybe he could release him prior to that, but they should move off of him. And he's got a player option for this upcoming season. If he opts into it, maybe they buy him out, try and trade him. I highly doubt. Matter of fact, I will guarantee no one's going to trade for that contract with the relative to his play and his distractions that he brings to your organization. I don't know what his market is. I really don't. I don't see it. All right. What do we got in the comments here? Alfred, who's a Jets fan, by the way. When it comes to the Jets, every day I ask God to make it stop. I can't take the below mediocrity results anymore. Well, listen, if I could translate, below mediocrity is bad. There's just no other way around it. And Aaron has been a bad quarterback. Let's just keep it real what he's been. He's been a bad quarterback since really the start of this season. Again, this is why I even got offended for Buffalo's sake to a certain degree. I'm not even a Bill. I'm a Steelers fan. Why should I care about how the Bills feel about off-season Vegas odds? But when Vegas had the Jets over the Bills in the AFC East, I'm like, what basis do you have this on? The Bills have the quarterback it's not even remotely close. Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, not even close. Okay? The Bills have the better coach, McDermott over Saleh. The Bills have the better offensive line. The Bills have the better running game. The Bills have, I think, better weapons, at least from what we've seen this year. Better coach defense. And let's see, they've won the division the last 4 years, and they're retaining all of their major pieces. They traded Stephon. I think that was a good move for Buffalo. And the idea that Aaron was just that that Father Time was going to lose around to Aaron Rodgers the way he lost to Tom Brady, who was committed to football with every fiber of his being. As a matter of fact, the 1 year Tom didn't seem like he was quite all in. He wasn't the same Tom Brady. And he retired the next year. I don't know. The offseason stuff really got on my nerves. Patrick. The great ayahuasca Rodgers could have been benched. Imagine that. I thought he was still elite. Woody Johnson's seen what everyone else has. Again, missing mandatory minicamp to kick it off with King Tut, or to kick it with King Tut was more important than building chemistry with his team. Winning isn't a priority unless it's his way. Flexing on the Pat McAfee show with his Thunder buddy, Tay Adams, like they were going to ignite the paper planes. Every week, it's something. Rain, time change, running for VP with RFK Jr., hosting Jeopardy. Again, Green Bay is winning and enjoying and not having to deal with the shenanigans of Errant Rodgers. E-R-R-A-N-T. Rodgers. Errant Rodgers. Yeah, Brian Gutekunst just by the day is just looking really, really good. Like really good. Jeff, yeah, Aaron's market, call me crazy, should be almost zero. Teams should be wanting him. He's not only not good on the field anymore, but he wants to complete what happens, and every coach would be worried about their job with him. Yeah, that's the thing when people compare it to the Russ stuff. Like Russ isn't out here making personnel decisions. Russ isn't out there on the McAfee show or on a national platform every Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever, to I guess, give his state of the whatever. I guess Aaron gives the state of the Jets, speeches now or diatribes on the McAfee show. So I don't know. I don't know what his market is. And at that point, he'd be forced to retire. And that's something that, again, not even a notch, not even a feather in the cap of Brady and of Peyton Manning, even Eli Manning to a certain degree, Drew Brees. But again, it's what I talked about last week, that when those guys left, and this matters. This doesn't make Aaron any less of a Hall of Famer, but folks, this freaking matters for legacy. It does. Tom was beloved. People hated Tom for 20 years in New England. Maybe the Tampa Bay thing. Maybe it was getting drunk at the parade. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the fact that he kept pushing it so far where he's 45, he's still playing. Even at 44, he should have won MVP, in my opinion. At 45, he was still a good quarterback. It was, okay, this guy's pushed us so far. He's won 7 titles, more than any other franchise. We got to give Tom love. What are we going to hate on him his entire career? We didn't hate on Michael Jordan or Brady, LeBron. Well, we kind of hated LeBron his whole career. But the point is, we're going to give Tom his love. Eli Manning, beloved by his fan base, even by a lot of NFL fans, in part because he took 2 rings from Brady. Drew Brees, beloved around the NFL. I mean, you had teammates with the Saints crying when this man retired. When Peyton Manning retired, Peyton cried at his retirement press conference. Broncos players were emotional. I remember exactly where I was when I was watching Peyton's retirement presser all the way back in 2016. I was getting emotional. It was like, oh my God, these guys are leaving. And when Aaron's gone, even Big Ben, it was like, oh man, Big Ben, he won 2 Super Bowls and he was the ultimate Steeler quarterback. And Aaron is like, yeah, good riddance. And he threw a pretty ball. That's kind of where we're at. He won MVPs and he threw a pretty ball. Last comment, then we'll move on to our break. Jeff, Bryson, you remember what I was telling you? I'm ready to put Stafford over Rodgers all time. I mean, Stafford's certainly been far better in the last 4 years. In terms of career accomplishments, it's not close because both have a ring and Rodgers has 4 MVPs to Stafford's 0. I'm not even sure how many Pro Bowls Matthew Stafford has made. But in terms of, let's put it this way. How about we put it this way? I'll compromise. I'll meet you in the middle. If you ask me who do you want to start your franchise with, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, it's Stafford by a landslide. It's Stafford by a landslide. You're telling me if Matt Stafford had gotten the coaching and the stability that Green Bay provided Aaron Rodgers for the majority of his career, that he wouldn't have gotten some MVPs in more than 1 Super Bowl? I mean, again, that's the thing. And I remember Colin Cowherd talked about this, and he was spot on. Then we'll go to break. He said the absolute second Matthew Stafford got a great coach, great organization, roster, all this, bam, wins a Super Bowl year 1. Aaron had many of those and got 1 total. Not saying all of his Green Bay rosters were great. A lot of them were. That 2011 roster when they went 15-1 was really good, and he gagged in the playoffs to the Giants. And has done it many times since. All right. So, yeah, I don't think Aaron has much of a mark at all. All right, back for carving up the context after the break. Because, again, I must admit, Actually, no, carving up the context would refer. I forgot to play the little intro. So you know what? We'll let the intro take us to break as it pertains to Deion Sanders. It's fitting. We're talking about Deion Sanders in the first segment. So, as the head coach of Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." Welcome back to Carving Up Live. So, talk about the NBA for a segment, this second, and then we'll move on to Bryce's best 10. And again, I apologize. I'm kicking myself right now for not doing the carving up the context, given the fact that we were literally talking about Deion Sanders. And when I do carving up the context, I say, and in the words of the head coach, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." So that was unfortunate. So we'll do a little edit before we put the video on YouTube because I want to give it that effect that it deserves. So in the NBA, listen, the Warriors have gotten off to a great start. The Cavs finally lost they lost to the Celtics. I mean, I guess if you're a Cleveland fan, that's there are worse teams you could lose your first game after 15 consecutive dubs to start to. Here's what I want to talk about, though. I want to talk about Philadelphia. I want to talk about the 76ers. So they're 2-11. They're one of the worst teams in the NBA. Yeah, they've dealt with injuries. Yeah. But they get off to a hot start in this game. Okay, they get up, I think, somewhere around 19 points in this basketball game. They wound up losing by 17. So it's a 36-point swing. They're 2-11, and according to reports, Tyrese Maxey, regarded by most, including myself, as the second best player on the Philadelphia 76ers, called out Joel Embiid, or at least spoke to the team, was talking about how, and we have the this is the article according to ESPN. In the meeting, Maxey challenged Embiid to be on time to team activities, calling out the former league MVP about being late for everything and how it impacts the locker room from other players to the coaching staff. Okay. That is as damning as it gets, in my opinion, and I think the Philadelphia 76ers should trade Joel Embiid effective immediately. It's not just for this. It's an accumulation of things, some of them out of Embiid's control, some of them in his control. I'll explain it. So I have been, listen, I was on a boat by myself for a very, very, very long time on this take on I don't think Joel Embiid's that reliable, and I'm not sure you can win a championship with him as your best player take. I think I've been validated on that over and over and over because he is, again, as I've said over and over and over, the only league MVP in the history of the National Basketball Association to have at no point in his career been to a conference finals, much less an NBA finals. Stephen A. Smith has caught flack for saying this, and I disagree with him, but not for the reasons everybody else does. Stephen A. Smith is often called Kawhi Leonard because of his extensive injury history and the fact that he is almost never available as the worst superstar in the NBA and the worst superstar in sports, the least reliable one, certainly. Nah, Stephen A., you got the wrong guy. Kawhi maybe now. When Kawhi was at his peak, he wasn't. When Kawhi was winning championships with 2 franchises, winning 2 finals MVPs, going on incredible. Even when the Spurs or the Raptors, the Clippers weren't winning championships, Kawhi Leonard was balling every year in the playoffs, almost without fail, 2020 being the exception. Name the time that's happened with Joel Embiid, ever. Literally ever. This is the least reliable superstar that I have seen in the NBA. no question, even above Kawhi Leonard. So as it just relates to injuries, we can go and show you the extensive history that he's had with that. He just misses a lot of games. He misses the entirety of his first 2 seasons. Then the following years, he's missed 51 games, 19, 18, 21, 21, 14, 16. And last year, Joel Embiid missed 43 games. And he is 30 years old at this stage of his career. But Embiid at 30 is, to put it mildly, not the same as Steph Curry at 30, as LeBron James at 30, as Giannis Antetokounmpo at 30, as Kevin Durant at 30. Not the same equivalency because of the size, because of the wear and tear on the body, and because of the injuries. We can talk about the fact that Joel Embiid consistently has been beat up throughout the course of his playoff career. 2018, orbital fracture and concussion. 2019, knee tendonitis and flu-like symptoms. No injuries in 2020, but that year the Sixers got swept out of the first round. 2021, he had a torn meniscus. 2022, he had a torn thumb, orbital fracture, and concussion. 2023, did a knee sprain. And this year, this past playoff run, he had a lateral meniscus injury, and it has led to him being, and I finally, folks are joining my side of the table on this, although there's folks that still resist it, is that this is, if you want to take the 10 best players in the NBA, and Embiid certainly is in that category, do a draft. Who do you most want in a playoff game? Playoff series. Side your life. He's the last pick of those 10. Matter of fact, there's guys outside the top 10, numerous, that I'd take Joel over Joel Embiid. Let's show his regular season stats, relative playoff stats. Oh, let's see. They all come down. Free throw percentage is about the same, but points per game down, rebounds down, assists down, field goal percentage way down. 3-point percentage, quite a bit down as well. Free throw percentage, basically the same. He's not reliable. And according to Maxey, his own team, this is not a report. This isn't, Brian Windhorst or Shams or anybody coming out and saying sources close. No. The source, his teammate, Tyrese Maxey, in the meeting. I want to repeat what he said, or repeat what this article said on ESPN. In the meeting, Maxey challenged Embiid to be on time to team activities, calling out the former league MVP about being late for everything and how it impacts the locker room from other players to the coaching staff. You have to move that guy. What evidence do we have in Philadelphia that this is the guy that can get you your first championships in the early 1980s and your first NBA finals in 2 decades? Does this resemble Dr. J, Allen Iverson, Moses Malone, even a guy who didn't win, Charles Barkley, the greats of Sixers past? You could say Chuck, but again, because Chuck had issues at times with his weight, staying in shape, all those different things. But to a certain degree, he kind of remade himself to a certain degree, and he won an MVP in Phoenix. Folks, Joel's 30. Playoff availability. The fact that this is in his, in total in his career, this is year 11. In terms of the years that he has started playing, 2016 was his first game in the NBA. This is year 9. We're in year 9, and we're still talking about you being in shape. If Smiangelo said it best, if someone shows you they are to believe them the first time. If we are this far into Joel Embiid's career, and Tyrese Maxey, the young guy, who, by the way, has been far more reliable in the playoffs than Embiid has been, and far more available than he's been, if he's having to call you out still to this day about not being available, not being in shape, showing up late to team meetings. My gosh, folks, this is giving James Harden in Houston circa 2020. Remember when that report came out? I remember talking about it in my show way back in the day on Carving It Up. When Russell Westbrook was irritated. And Russell Westbrook and Harden are boys. They're really tight. And Westbrook was like, man, this guy's showing up late all the time. He's showing up late to flights. And this is really starting to remind me a lot of that. Embiid will absolutely still command a market. The man won an MVP 2 years ago. And could have won multiple, other than, aside from that, he can still be, in the regular season, a very dominant force on the interior. Who can shoot from the perimeter? Who can be a good rim protector? All of these different things. You are never sniffing a championship. The 3 biggest games Joel Embiid has ever played. Game 7, 2019, disappeared against Toronto. Game 7 against the Hawks. The Hawks, led by Trae Young and Kevin Huerter. Nothing against those guys, but come on. At home, by the way, came up small, lost. We blamed everybody in Philadelphia. By the way, in some cases, rightfully so. Ben Simmons, James Harden, Doc Rivers. At some point, when's it going to be on you, my man? At some point, when the Sixers aren't achieving what that we have been promised that they were going to achieve year after year after year, some point when it's fallen the best player in the MVP of the league 2 years ago. The face of the franchise. These are the burdens you got to bear. Basic things. Again, this is what has made LeBron and Steph so great. And Kevin Durant, like the three guys that have defined their generation of basketball. They are effing obsessed with being great, with being in the best shape they can be. Now, in their, they've gotten older. Yeah, they've dealt with injuries. But by and large, we need LeBron James, we need Steph Curry, we need Kevin Durant. They're going to be there for you physically. In the case of LeBron and Steph, they're going to lead you. You're going to get the best out of them when the money's on the line. Those are the guys you win championships with. You win championships. You got young guys in the league. Again, we got to see how these guys pan out long term. You're going to win with guys like Anthony Edwards, who loves basketball, is obsessed with it, and is doing everything that he can to put his team in position to be successful. When Joel Embiid is consistently not available and not 100% for the playoffs, folks are like, hey, Bryson, you got to give him a pass because he's always hurt. This is part of the reason why he's always hurt. He doesn't take care of his body. He doesn't care. He clearly values his own time over the time of his Philadelphia 76ers, teammates. When you are a Tyrese Maxey and you're a young guy, this is year 5 for Maxey, coming from the basketball powerhouse that is Kentucky and having the work ethic that is in you to be great, and then you see this guy who's even more talented than you are, not putting the necessary work in. Disheartening that's got to be, how much that piss you off. That's what Kobe Bryant got mad at Shaq for. At least Shaq delivered you 3 championships, won the league MVP, and is one of the most dominant players ever. Joel Embiid's got the capability to do that. He just doesn't really want to. Not to the level the greats do. Not to the level the all-time big men have wanted to. So I think that is one of the most damning reports about a superstar in the last decade that I've seen. I'm talking superstar as in like top 10, no question. A lot of folks have him in the top 5. I do not believe Joel Embiid is one of the 5 best players in basketball. Can he be? Sure. I just don't think he wants to be. Not to all the guys that I consider our top 5 want to be. In this order, at least this is the order coming into the season. In this order, Jokic, Giannis, Luka, Steph, LeBron. By the way, 2 of those guys one's about to be 40, one's about to be 37. There's levels to this, and it's why Joel Embiid will not reach that level. It's why he's the only MVP in league history to have never made a conference finals. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. Let's see what we got. Jeff disagrees. He says, what? Bryson, come on, man. Trade easily the best player in your team and a top 10 player with some of the most potential in the league. We're 30 years old. He hasn't reached it yet. If he hasn't done it now, when's he going to? Patrick, Philly has maxed their cap and draft equity for Joel. The process is over. That's putting it mildly. A pressure is mounting and he can't handle it. I'm not a fan of his. Give me Giannis over Joel anytime. No doubt about it. Again, you want someone, another guy that is obsessed? Jeff, bro, that take that Embiid isn't the same player in the playoffs isn't the whole story. We both know he's been hurt and sometimes gassed come playoff time. Yeah, because he doesn't take his body seriously. That's why. And Patrick, James Harden 2.0 in his body language says he's done in Philly. Okay, this I can't buy this, Jeff. Bro, the 76ers have no idea how to use him. Jokic or Luka doesn't take care of their body either. That's not true. That is Luka. By the way, Luka did it for a while. Luka's a good example. Luka was a guy who would routinely come in. Boy, he looks a little pudgy. He looks a little out of shape. Luka would go through stretches, and Luka's still a god-awful defensive player. That's not an in-shape problem. That's an effort, and I just flat out don't want to play defense problem, which Dallas is going to have to deal with later. But Luka would routinely come in out of shape until about a season or 2 ago, and it's like, okay, yeah, Luka's ready to go. We see offseason pictures of Luka like, oh, dude, you've lost too much weight. You might want to put a little bit more muscle on. Jokic does not, he may not look, aesthetically, he does not look like LeBron James. He does not look like Anthony Edwards or Giannis. Jokic is one of the best most in-shape players in the NBA. When you consider the responsibility that guy has 9 in and 9 out. I got to score, I got to distribute, I got to rebound, I got to run the offense, I got to play 37, 38 minutes a night. So Jokic is listen, the last time I saw Jokic look like truly gassed was when I saw everybody look truly gassed, which was the bubble. The bubble made everybody tired because it was, I just read a book about the NBA bubble, and it was no fun. Let's put it mild. Let's put it that way. But you watch Jokic play these games, and the effort level's the same, the intensity's the same, the conditioning is the same in the fourth quarter that it is at the opening tip. Like, Luka didn't take care of his body for a while, but then he adjusted that. Now Luka's got to learn to guard people in the final 5 seconds of a tie game. That would really help Dallas. I'm not saying Luka's got to be freaking Dennis Rodman, but it wouldn't hurt if you put a little bit more effort into the defense, man. All right. This is as excited as I've been for a Bryce's Best 10 segment all season long. All season long. Because the one common denominator of the previous 11 editions of Bryce's Best 10 has been, well, we know number 1, number 2 is Kansas City's 1, Detroit's 2. And those are my 2 picks to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC and out of the NFC. And I still maintain that, by the way. However, the Chiefs lost, and a team not that far behind them in the rankings beat them. Meanwhile, Detroit has not lost since week 2. They're kind of rolling right now. So what would the top 10 in Bryce's Best 10 look like? Well, here's what I'll tell you. The top 3 of last week in this order, Kansas City, Detroit, Buffalo, that will not be repeated as we go into week 12. Let's get our background music going right now. Bryce's Best 10. Here we go. Okay, we do have some continuity, some consistency at the number 10 spot, which is the exact same as last week. At number 10, leading the NFC West, it is the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals, off a bye week, they stay where they're at, are the 10th best team in the National Football League. And here is why. Kyler's having maybe the best season of his career. They're running the football as effectively as any team in football. This defense, led by defensive coach Jonathan Gannon, is playing lights out right now. And listen, as crowded a division as this is, Seattle got a big win over the Niners. Niners are 5-5. Okay, you got the Rams are also 5-5. This team's a game up, and this team has, outside the Rams, played better than everybody else in the division. They can beat you multiple different ways. Marvin Harrison Jr. has really come into this his own in this offense. I like what Arizona's doing this year. I said before this year that the Cardinals will be the most exciting 4 or 5 win team in football. My bad, guys. You guys are a real football team. You guys can beat teams multiple different ways. I might have rejected this, but I feel like someone might have told me, I forget who it was, that maybe to a certain degree they might be like a lesser version of what the Detroit Lions are doing and what the Detroit Lions have done the last few years. I see it to a certain degree. Kyler's very different from Jared Goff, and the O-line is not even close between these two teams, but they can run the football effectively. They can play great defense, and Kyler has played clean football over the course of the season. The Cardinals are the 10th best team in the National Football League. At number 9, back in Bryce's Best 10 after a brief absence, it is the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are the 9th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. What am I going to do? Leave an 8-2 team out of my top 10? I'm not going to do that. So, look, I still don't trust Sam Darnold, but this Vikings defense is playing as well as any in the National Football League this side of Pittsburgh. They can take the ball away. They can run effectively. Justin Jefferson is still, in my mind, clearly the best receiver in all of football with respect to guys like Jamar Chase. I think, listen, getting T.J. Hawkinson back is going to be critical for this offense. They've got Kevin O'Connell, who's one of the smartest offensive coaches in football. Brian Flores, we know what he's done with the defensive side of the ball. What I was really impressed by is, they didn't play well against Jacksonville. That's what took them out of Bryce's Best 10, the fact that they were in a close game with Mac Jones. That said, you go into Tennessee, I thought the Titans were actually going to cover in that game. I thought it was, going to be relatively close. The Titans' only 7 came on just a busted coverage, a breakaway 98-yard touchdown, whatever it was, just to get them back in that game. Other than that, their defense was great. It's one of the best in football. Listen, they're in the toughest division in the league. Somehow, some way, you look at them, you're like, they're a game back in Detroit. Technically 2 back in Detroit because they did lose to the Lions. But still, Minnesota's playing great football. They're playing technically sound football. They are the 9th best team in the National Football League. At number 8, falling 2 spots from last week, it is the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are the 8th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. We know how great Lamar Jackson is. That goes without saying, except when he plays the Steelers, the Chiefs, or anybody in the postseason, that is when he really struggles. I believe do we still have the graphic from the last show? Again, this is Lamar Jackson against everybody else in the NFL. This is Lamar Jackson against the Chiefs, the Steelers, and everybody in the playoffs. He turns into a different player. Is it because he gets tight? I don't know what it is. Here's what I do know about the Ravens. For as bad as their defense has been over the course of the season, they actually did play pretty well. My Steelers didn't get in the end zone. They really get a fourth quarter turnover, interception off Russell Wilson. Most of that was Russell just throwing the most idiotic pass in the run zone that I've seen this year. That said, listen, Justin Tucker has fallen off a cliff. He's a shell of what he used to be, the best kicker in the National Football League. John Harbaugh, the Ravens, really struggling to consistently find what they want to be as a team. Do we want to throw it a million times with the best assortment of receivers that Lamar's had, or do we want to give it to potentially still the best back in the NFL, Derrick Henry? Week to week, you're not sure what they're going to do. There doesn't seem to be any sort of continuity in that regard. The talent's there. Lamar's awesome. I still don't buy in their defense. I love their offensive weapons. They're clearly one of the 10 best teams in the league. I've got them at number 8. The Ravens are the 8th best team in the National Football League. At number 7, staying where they're at from a week ago, it is the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are the 7th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So they obviously would have dropped had they ended up losing that game to Chicago, and you're like, Bryson, it took a block kick to beat Chicago. Like, shouldn't they still kind of drop a little bit? Here's what I'll say. Folks know on this show I really value special teams. Being a fan of a team where Chris Boswell is the kicker gives you a new sort of appreciation for said special teams. When you consider what Kansas City did, saving the game via special teams. When you consider San Francisco blowing games this year due to their special teams. And when you consider the Packers saving the game and saving an opportunity, who knows, outside chance to win the NFC North and to keep themselves right in the hunt in the NFC wildcard chase and creating separation there. Special teams got the job done. Jordan Love was clutch in the fourth quarter, led the go-ahead drive. The Packers defense showed some signs of an ability to get got, if you will, given what Caleb Williams did over the course of the afternoon, accumulated with 300 yards. Some of that's just Caleb being, I think, one of the most talented quarterbacks we've seen out of a draft. I still love Green Bay's young roster. The wide receivers, it's as loaded to the core as there is in the National Football League, and Matt LaFleur is doing a great job. The Packers are the 7th best team in the National Football League. At number 6, moving up, big jump for them, 3 spots from last week. It is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are the 7th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, look, Philadelphia is playing their best football right now. They're on a 6-game winning streak. Jalen Hurts, I believe 6-game winning streak, my bad. Jalen Hurts' deep ball is working. A.J. Brown is the key that makes this offense work we've seen over the course of this year. When A.J. Brown's there, when he's not, it's a different offense, full stop. Saquon Barkley, to me, is right in the thick of the MVP chase with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. He's playing excellent football. The Eagles O-line, even without Jason Kelce, playing excellently. By the way, the defense has done a complete 180. I got to give Vic Fangio credit. It has done a complete 180 from where it was a year ago. This team would be in the top 5, no question about it, if Nick Sirianni wasn't their coach. If I didn't have a deep concern that in a close game against a legit contender, what the heck is Nick Sirianni going to do? What's his 4th down decision-making going to be? Is Philadelphia going to miss a kick? Jake Elliott struggled over the course of that game against Washington last Thursday. Other than that, it's one of the most talented rosters, one of the 3 most talented rosters in football. Their pass rush is great. Bryce Huff, I think, is beat up, but he should be back sooner rather than later. Their secondary is great. The Eagles are the 6th best team in the National Football League. Staying at number 5 where they were last week, it is the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are the 5th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So, really impressed by the way that they beat the Cincinnati Bengals in the sense that was looking to be the typical LA Chargers loss, aka chargering. You got a big lead, you blow it, and then you just wither. You collapse all over yourself in the fourth quarter, which it looked like they were going to do against Cincinnati. But then Justin Herbert said, no, I'm going to stand up. I am going to lead a game-winning drive. I'm going to deliver big-time throw after big-time throw to Ladd McConkey and others. And by the way, Ladd McConkey's really stepped up over the last few weeks. We know what the Chargers can do with J.K. Dobbins in their running game. Defensively, down game for them, but then again, it's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. They've given a lot of defensive problems over the course of the season. There's not much I don't like about this Chargers team. Jim Harbaugh is a wizard. He's one of my favorite coaches and one of the best coaches in professional football. This Harbaugh brothers Monday Night Football game is going to be a fun one to watch on Monday Night Football, no doubt about it. Great game before Thanksgiving on MNF. But listen, Herbert's playing. By the way, Herbert's another guy I talked about last week. Like, no one's talking about Josh Allen being the MVP chase, and he kind of validated that against Kansas City. I'm going to put it on the record now. Herbert should sneakily be in the MVP race right now with the way that he's playing. Not much not to like about this Chargers team. I think they're absolutely the 5th best team in the National Football League. Staying at number 4 where they were last week, it is my Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are the 4th best team in the National Football League. And here's why. The craziest stat I've seen all week, and it's a Mike Tomlin stat to a T. The Steelers are 2-0 this season when they don't score touchdowns. And in both of those games, by the way, Chris Boswell 6 for 6 on his field goal attempts. So that's kind of what won us the game against Baltimore, and the fact that we held an offense that was basically number 1 or number 2 in the NFL, depending on what numbers you looked at. We held them to 16 points and well below half of what their point total has been over the course of this year. TJ Watt's is still a one-man wrecking crew. And that's the thing about Pittsburgh that is so freaking scary about that D-line. If you double and triple team TJ Watt, here comes Nick Herbig. Because Alex Highsmith didn't play against the Ravens, and Highsmith's a great pass rusher. Alex Highsmith didn't play. That's okay. We'll send Nick Herbig. Okay, we'll send Preston Smith, who we got from the Green Bay Packers. Patrick Queen will force a big-time fumble. He's going to be an active guy around the football. We've got ball-hawking players like Beanie Bishop and Joey Porter Jr. and guys like that. There's not anything not to like about the Steelers' defense. It's the best in football, no question about it. Russell Wilson's deep ball, George Pickens, is still working. Russell, just cut down the boneheaded mistakes in the red zone and we'll be good. Again, Najee Harris hasn't been as good in the last couple of weeks, but want to get him ramped up in this game coming up against Cleveland and moving forward. There's not much the Steelers can't do offensively, especially with Russell Wilson bringing the deep ball to the lineup. I do have major questions about the offensive line, namely Broderick Jones, who just commits the dumbest penalties and puts the Steelers in really tough situations. Steelers got the best defensive football, bar none. Offensively, they found a new identity. The Steelers are the 4th best team in the National Football League. And here is where it gets fun. Top 3 all jumbled up from where it's been in the last few weeks. So at number 3, falling 2 spots from where they've been all season long, it is the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the 3rd best team in the National Football League. And here's why. So what did I say all season long? Even when they weren't playing that well offensively and still finding a way to eke out wins via special teams and defense. My thing was, I don't know, they won 15 straight games, haven't lost since Christmas. Call me when they lose. Well, the Bills said, okay, we'll dial that number. Bryson, they lost. We beat them. Okay, you got me. So look, Mahomes is not playing his best football whatsoever right now. A couple of turnovers in this game against Buffalo. That first pick against the Bills was an ugly one. I do like the fact that they're getting Xavier Worthy more involved every single week. There's the potential. Isaiah Pacheco comes back this week. On the edges, on their tackles, the Chiefs have been an utter disaster this year all season long. Guard, center guard. Okay, with I believe it's Tooney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. Great. Unbelievable. Maybe the best interior O-line in all football. On the edges, they're a mess, and Mahomes is running for his life in the pocket. He's got to cut back on the bad mistakes. Andy Reid, I think, has called really good games over the last few weeks, including against Buffalo. Just his defense, and Steve Spagnuolo had a rough day at the office. They got a big bounce-back opportunity against Carolina. I think they'll get right. But Kansas City is, people acting like, oh, the Bills are exposed to the Chiefs, and the Chiefs could be on the ropes here. They're going to be fine. The Chiefs are the 3rd best team in the National Football League. At number 2, moving up 1 spot from where they were last week, it is the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are the 2nd best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So Josh Allen's playing as well as he's ever played in his entire career to this point. Again, he's limited the turnovers. He's not playing nearly as reckless as he has in years past, and a lot of that is because of Joe Brady. A lot of that is Joe Brady coming in and saying, we're going to establish a run game. Okay, and by the way, for Buffalo, we're gonna give you some depth at wide receiver, but that depth wasn't available against the Kansas City defense that had not given up 30 points since the Eagles Super Bowl 2 Super Bowls ago. You're without Keon Coleman. Khalil Shakir gets hurt in this game. There's no Dalton Kincaid, and James Cook doesn't give you a ton in this game in terms of running the football, and you still beat the world champs by 2 scores and scored 30 on them. I was thoroughly impressed by what I saw from Buffalo. Josh Allen is the front runner for MVP, rightfully so. I'm not saying it's a runaway right now, but he should be the front runner for MVP today. Sean McDermott's done a great job. The defense has been opportunistic. The pass rush, by the way, Von Miller has seen a resurgence this season as he's getting up there in age. I love what I'm seeing from Buffalo. When they get all their pieces back, I said coming this season, even before they got Amari Cooper, that was a scary offense. I certainly maintain that. The Bills are the second best team in the National Football League, and that leaves a team that has just kept hanging around there like a firefly to a light bulb on a hot summer night all season long. At number 2, they move up a spot as high as they can get. The best team in the National Football League is the Detroit Lions, my adopted team. I'm a Steelers fan, but I love me some Detroit Lions, no question about that. At number 1 for the first time all season, Dan Campbell. What did y'all do to them Jacksonville Jaguars?
Kneecap.
Oh, they did. They hung a 50-piece on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Here's something that I think is quite remarkable, okay? Jared Goff, this is a crazy stat. The second time that he has done this in his career. 400 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, perfect passer rating. That's the second time Jared Goff has done that in his career. The first time was back in 2018 with the Los Angeles Rams, who made the Super Bowl that year, obviously. They went on to lose to the Patriots, but the Rams made the Super Bowl. Jared Goff, a quarterback. So, look, it's you can't take a ton out of playing a game against the worst quarterback in football, Mac Jones. That said, it's like running into it's like going in and facing a freaking runaway train going 100 miles an hour. Like, there's nothing you can do to stop this team. They can beat you 1,000 different ways. Okay, when they're faced a bad team, there's no chance you beat them. Dan Campbell's doing his thing. Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are doing their things as the 2 coordinators. The roster stacked. It's the best roster in the National Football League. It's the best O-line in football. Running game's amazing. Thunder and Lightning, Montgomery and Gibbs. The receivers, now you got Tim Patrick stepping up along with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, Sam Laporte. I mean, they're stacked. There's no other way to say it. They're stacked. The best team in the National Football League. That is the Detroit Lions. And Detroit reigns supreme on Bryce's Best 10 for the first time all season long. All right, before we get to the comments, see, we got some comments in here. Before I get to those, let's look at Bryce's Best 10 for Week 12. So you see from 1 to 10. So we'll go from 10 up to 1. I've got the Cardinals saying where they're at, the Vikings, the Ravens, the Packers, the Eagles, and in the top 5, from 5 to 1, the Chargers, my Steelers, the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Detroit Lions. There you go. I mean, listen, I have to put Buffalo above Kansas City. They literally beat them. And Detroit is playing better than anybody else in the NFL. There's no question about that. Let's see what we got. Jeff, yeah, we both said the Chargers were being slept on at the beginning of the season. Yeah, that's no lie. They're not, the Chargers don't play a lot of big national TV games. They're not even the most popular team in their own city, in their own stadium. They're playing really good football right now, though. I mean, America got to see them on primetime on Sunday Night Football against the Bengals. They're going to see them on primetime again for the Harbaugh versus Harbaugh matchup. Jim versus John, Chargers versus Ravens, I guess, on Monday Night Football. Take a good look at this game because you're going to see how good the Chargers are. I think they're really, really special. What else we got? Jeff, called it last show. Herbert MVP chance would start happening. No question. Oh, Jeff, dude, Peyton Wilson is incredible. That's a fact. Listen, Peyton Wilson may have had to play the game in that game between the Ravens and the Steelers. This is after Russell threw the just awful interception in the end zone. That it's like, oh my gosh, did he just throw us the game here or throw away the game? What's the score at that point? I think we were up 5 at that point. I think it was. I want to double check. It was, so it was 15-10 Steelers. Russell throws a horrible interception in the end zone. Ravens get it back. Lamar throws a deep ball to, I think it was Justice Hill. Yeah, Justice Hill. I'm thinking, oh crap, he just hit Justice Hill. Now they're going to roll, and now they're going to score, and now we've got it. And Peyton Wilson comes in, literally just takes the ball out of Justice Hill's hands, gets the interception, and preserves the lead for Pittsburgh, which they would never given up. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'm curious. Jeff says, what's your thoughts on Nick Wrongs or Wright? I like Nick Wright, okay? It'd be nice, my man. What's your thoughts on Nick Wright's take saying the Lions have a civilian at quarterback and Goff and everything has to go right for him to win. In like, you're an idiot. Goff had five picks in a game, and they won. Yeah, listen, I mean, generally, Nick and I agree as it relates to it's really hard to win a Super Bowl if you don't have, as he would say, a superhero at quarterback, as I would say, a guy who is a clear top 5 guy in the NFL. We know the names: Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Lamar Jackson, guys like that. It is hard to win a Super Bowl. What I would say to Nick is, Goff has done it before when he was far less of a player than far less of a player than the one he is now. And secondly, I mean, Nick, you're lower on Purdy than I am. And the Niners made the Super Bowl last year in part because their roster was freaking stacked and the coaching staff was great. By the way, I'd think this Lions coaching staff just as a whole. Dan Campbell's not better than Shanahan, but as a whole, this Lions coaching staff is better than the Niners coaching staff last year. I think there's any question about that. And in terms of the roster, yeah, you got an elite tight end. You got a deep wide receiving core. The O-line with this year's Lions team is way better than the Niners last year. The defense, I give San Francisco the edge, but Detroit's playing great defensively. So you can make a Super Bowl. You can make a deep run even if you don't have Superman at quarterback. So, and by the way, to your point, Jeff, yeah, Goff played his worst game of the season. They trailed by 15 and won. That hasn't been done in 50 plus years in the NFL. 5 interceptions, your quarterback throws, you trail by 15 points and win. I know Houston's not playing great football, but still, that's impressive. That's really impressive. So, yeah, I think the Lions right now, today, are the best team in football. Who does Detroit play this week? Well, they got at Indianapolis, and that's an interesting game. I mean, Detroit's favored. They should be favored. They're favored by 7. Anthony Richardson had a great game against the Jets. It's in Indy. I'd probably go. I'll obviously do my predictions on Friday. Probably go Detroit -7. I think. I don't know. That might be the bleak. I don't want to do a bleak bet game for the Lions. That feels like it'd be kind of insulting. But there are some good ones. Patriots Dolphins, I think, is a sneaky, fascinating matchup. The Patriots, even in the Brady era, never win in Miami. Let's see. You got Vikings Bears. That's a fun one. Niners Packers is like the game. Eagles Rams is a fantastic Sunday night matchup. You got Cardinals Seahawks in Seattle. A lot of the late window games, and they got Ravens Chargers on Monday Night Football. That's a fantastic matchup between 2 AFC wildcard teams. I'm obviously gonna be pulling hard for the Chargers to help my Steelers out, but yeah, we got some pretty solid games in Week 12 before we go into Week 13. Do we have a comment here? Let's see what we got. Jeff, OMG, easily Bryson, the Lions coaching staff is way better than ours. Yeah, I mean, listen, the top end last year, Shanahan, I thought had a great year last year. But I've said, I think Dan Campbell, it's hard to, because the thing that I'm so impressed about Dan is that, obviously we don't see him as like the X's and O's guy that the Shanahans and the McVays and the Andy Reids and guys like that are. The thing, though, about Dan Campbell, it's very much, he's cut from the Mike Tomlin cloth in that his team's ready to go every single week. I mean, I'll watch the Chiefs. Even when they start 9-0, it'd be like, okay, they came out a little lackadaisical. I think the Chiefs' point differential in the first quarter is like -16. Like the Chiefs, now they get hot late. They're amazing situationally late. Mahomes is money in the fourth quarter, but they do, again, some of that's a championship hangover. Some of that is, we played a lot of regular season games. These don't hold the weight that the games in January and February do. But that stuff does matter for Detroit, and they take every single opponent just as seriously as the previous one, just as seriously as they're going to take the next one. And boy, it's who'd have thought we'd see like the Thanksgiving Day where more Americans are excited to watch the Lions than the Cowboys, and it's like not even remotely close. I can't remember a Thanksgiving Day game in Dallas where I could skip the game and probably do a good show. I'll probably talk about it because the Cowboys, it's Thanksgiving, but like Bears Lions, that's fun. That's Caleb Williams and the Lions, and then Dolphins Packers, and then Raiders Chiefs on Black Friday. There's some fun storylines there. I don't know. Yeah, Dallas is a mess. All right, let's move on to, before we get out of here, to my predictions for tomorrow night's matchup featuring my Pittsburgh Steelers and Aiden. Oh, life. Oh, love. Excuse me. The Steelers on the road in Cleveland are a 3.5-point favorite. I'm not gonna lie, I find this line a little bit insulting by Las Vegas, an 8-2 team going to visit a 2-8 team, and the 8-2 team is favored by just a little over a field goal. Nonetheless, we see the disrespect in Pittsburgh, and we love it. So, listen, for Pittsburgh, it's the best defensive football. We understand the impact they've had with their defensive line. The Cleveland has struggled mightily with their offensive line all season long. Jameis Winston had the nice game against Baltimore, has really fallen off since. Again, Jameis is a fun player, but he is a backup quarterback for a reason. He's probably in that low-end starter, high-end backup category. I think that's fair to say. Listen, at the end of the day, I'll put it this way. If Kevin Stefanski is coaching for his job, then the Browns are even more out of their mind than I thought. If you had to go over the list of problems with the Browns, like Myles Garrett and Kevin Stefanski are tied with at the bottom for the least of Cleveland's concerns. So the Browns are beat up. They got nothing to play for. Yeah, it's the Steelers coming into town, and it's a rivalry game. It's not really a rivalry game. The Steelers literally own the Browns historically, and there's no reason to believe that's not going to continue. My Steelers get the job done. Pat Early in the AFC North, 28-12. I don't think we're going to give up a single touchdown. Listen, that's the thing. At times, the Steelers, if they're not totally engaged, they'll like bend but don't break. Like they'll give up a long drive and they'll be like, okay, we'll stop you when it really matters. But the Steelers will get the job done, 28-12 over the Cleveland Browns. I see a big Jalen Warren game. I think Jalen Warren's going to go for 100 total yards of offense in this game, and we'll say maybe a couple touchdowns. So expect Jalen Warren to go off in the Steelers. Steelers offense needs a good little kind of bounce back from last week. We don't want Chris Boswell to be the only offense. So, sometimes you're going to remind Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin, the end zone is not the 35-yard line, okay? Like, you got to go a little bit closer to get to pay dirt and get more points on the board. But Steelers blow out Cleveland. No question about that. 28-12 in Cleveland, Ohio. All right. That's all the time we have for today's show. I appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there, and it helps to help the channel grow exponentially. Please tell your friends about the show, your family about the show, everybody you know about Carving It Up Live, except for your sleeping cat. We got Nealon like a Christmas blanket, and he is loving it. Nealon doesn't like it. We can get anything for Nealon. We can give him whatever he wants. Unless it's food or a blanket, he couldn't give a dang. But he loves this new Christmas blanket we gave him, so shout out to Nealon. Tomorrow's actually his gotcha day. So love you, my little guy. Just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts, via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. Patrick Brown in the comments here, I'm sure he's got some big-time articles coming along the way. You can check out some of his previous ones on the Grid's website. The link to that is on our Instagram account, or you can just go to Google, go to whatever search engine you use, search Grid Network. I think Pod Page is what it's called. You'll find the website there. You find the links to all of our content creating shows, my show, everybody else who's at the Grid. Check out Patrick's articles. No question about that, because we got some really, really talented people. Had a blast last night on the 8 o'clock spot. Check that out every Tuesday night at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, I should say, 5 p.m. Pacific time on the Grid's YouTube channel, the best game show in town. The graphics man and a personal friend of mine, Alfred Parsar Jr., won the show last night, and rightfully so, my man. Congrats to Alfred. All right, we will see you guys on Friday. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Doesn't matter really right, left, center. This is an issue that affects every single one of us as Americans on a day-to-day basis in this country. And no matter what anybody tries to tell you, oh, it's not a problem. Oh, there's only one solution to the problem. Both are BS. Both are not true. This is a huge problem that needs a number of detailed, nuanced solutions to solve it. We've got some new men and women coming into office with the ones that are already there. Let's urge them. Let's make our voices heard as citizens of this country, that we want to be safe from gun violence in this country, because it affects all of us. So let's do what we got to do to prevent that from happening in the future. All right, listen. I'm going to come in hopefully come in a good mood on Friday. Volview, they're playing UTEP. They're favored by like 1,000,000 points. Tennessee is in good spots. It'll be a good Volview after a tough loss against Georgia last week. Steelers going to beat Cleveland. Anytime Cleveland loses, it's happy. But when my team beats Cleveland, when the Steelers beat the Browns, it's a good day on Carving Up Live. And we will say then, stay safe out there, everybody. God bless y'all. Peace out. Come on, Russell. No interceptions, Russell. Come on. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.